The world is changing, okay? There was a time before smartphones when, well, there was a time even before the time I'm about to discuss when there just wasn't the internet, right? You didn't have, to get information you had to go find an encyclopedia. Like, how many people have actually used an encyclopedia? I have. See some younger people not raising their hands. But after, kind of the encyclopedia time, you had to go to a desk, to a desktop computer, a thing that was heavy, and you had to lug around. And now we have the luxury of having these computers in our pockets and accessible all the time. And there's a new version of the world where we might not even carry cell phones anymore, smartphones, because everything might be a computer. This clicker could be a computer, and I could just say, hey, clicker, call mom, and it would make a phone call. I could ask it, how many tablespoons are in a cup? And this idea of information being everywhere is called ambient computing. And I am super excited about this possibility, this future. And the really neat thing about it is that it is very accessible to developers with Google tools that we're going to talk about today. So just to get a broader sense of the room, how many Android developers do we have in a room? All right, GDG events tend to skew that way. How many people here would be comfortable writing Hello World in C with the help of a computer or a book? Okay, so we got some, I'll call you programmers in here. How many people here are content creators? A blog, a podcast, something like that. Okay, so I feel like we've covered everybody. We have 100% coverage here. All of you can be a part of this amazing world of voice programming. And I'm going to talk about different ways, Android-specific ways, programmer-specific ways, content creator-specific ways that you can be part of this new revolution. You guys excited? All right, let's do it. Okay. Let's start with some fun numbers. So the Google Assistant, if anybody remembers Android 10, 12 years ago when it was just getting started, it was very basic, very much, just English, just, one flavor. There was only one kind of hardware device, the G1. Now you can do just about anything. We have foldable devices, all kinds of things. The neat thing about the voice and Google Assistant, what we're going to talk about today, is it's already got a running start. So it's already available in 19 languages in 80 different countries. If you write a compelling action for the Google Assistant, it could be in France tomorrow. It could be in Brazil tomorrow. There are over 1 million actions already available. Some of you folks who have been around Android for a long time, you might remember when there were 100 Android apps, 1,000 Android apps. Now there's millions upon millions of Android apps. Here we are only in year 2 or 3 of the Google Assistant. There's already over 1 million actions, which is incredible. And when you write software, when you invest time in developing in this ecosystem, you're going to be available on 1 billion devices right away, which is incredible. The market penetration is really exciting. Oops, sorry. Oh, geez. Hold on. All right. And things are just exploding from there. In just 2018, usage grew by 400%. Now, who can benefit from the Google Assistant? Everybody. When someday I can talk to my clicker, everybody can use the Google Assistant. But there are some specific demographics that especially benefit from voice interactions and the Google Assistant. And one of those markets is folks with mobility impairment. So a lot of times we don't think about these users. At the very end of this talk, I'm going to talk about inclusive design tips. And 20% of the American population has some form of mobility impairment, might not be able to use a small smartphone or even a computer. And I'd like to show you a short video about this topic. See if the sound works. Oh, let me.
Color in my room, my two favorite passions, outdoors and sports. It's a place where I can just be me. Nobody else can judge what I do or anything, and it's just a great place to be.
The first day I was at Robbie's house, it was very evident that Robbie's bedroom was his universe.
I was diagnosed at the age of 5 with Duchenne muscular
The dystrophin protein is not made in the muscle, so the muscle tends to waste away. At age 8, he started to slow down. 12, he was in a wheelchair. At 19, he's got very limited use of hands. And he's got the same thought process every other 19-year-old boy has. Cars, girls, video games.
My mom is like my main advocate. She's just there for me, helps me do basically every function I do, and almost everything was hard to do without calling for assistance. Before Bill came along, Bill's our tech genius.
I met Bill through Muscular Dystrophy Association. He asked if we needed anything. They said, well, if you happen to know anybody that knows anything about voice activation, you can call.
Hey Google, turn on feet.
Okay, turning on the feet.
A couple days later, I got a phone call.
Kerry mentioned right off that Robbie's bed is something he can no longer control. He would have to holler to Kerry to make a small incremental change in the bed, so he was no longer sore.
I was up every hour, hour and a half. I was getting no sleep, Robbie was getting no sleep.
And so I saw how coming up with a solution for Robbie's bed would have an impact on both of them.
He had to do a lot of research to figure out how to make this work.
Hey Google, turn on bed.
You got it, turning on the head.
And from there, little by little, that.
Hey Google, turn on TV.
Turning on TV.
It was kind of what this my imagination allowed me to want to have voice acting. Hey Google, turn on room 1. Hey Google, turn on fan. Hey Google, call Gary.
Calling Gary Ivy. Yes, Roberto.
I'm able to do stuff on my own, and it lets me give my mom a break a little bit.
I expected not to get any sleep for the rest of my life. And here, you know, I can get out and take the walks. Sometimes I need an hour, hour and a half of sanity to get away from, hey Google, hey Google, hey Google.
These, here's your choice title.
So is that all the scripts I'll take?
Voice activation opened up a whole new world that I don't think many people really can understand yet. Robbie's got a lot more freedom than he had before.
Most people think that just because you're in a chair, everything's disabled. But my main attribute is my mind.
I've always had the hopes that he would go to college. He's an honor student. He's incredibly smart.
He applied for 4 or 5 colleges and has acceptance letters from everyone he applied to.
After 19 years, it's been about time to start going off on your own, doing your own thing.
Robbie's bedroom back home helped Robbie gain independence. We've tried to replicate that same environment here at the dorm.
Hey Google, turn on the head.
You got it, turning on the head.
He's in an environment that's all new. And I think to know that he hasn't lost all of that capability that he gained will be comforting to him. But beyond that, he'll be challenged in ways that he hasn't anticipated yet.
He has a drive. He wants to succeed. He wants to be something. And as long as he pushes, that's what he's going to get.
Bye. I'm excited for this new chapter, and I feel like everything's in front of me.
Oops. Okay, so I talked about the kind of evolution of computing earlier with the encyclopedia example. Here's a graphical example of it, and I'll frame this in a personal story. When I graduated, when I went to college, this is a representative room of my age. A lot of times I give this talk to a room full of 25-year-olds, and they don't really understand what I'm talking about. But to put things into context, when I was a freshman in college, I didn't receive an email address. I had never used email. It wasn't until my sophomore year of college that I actually had an email address. And when I came out of college, the web was just beginning, and I spent about 10 years, about a decade, doing back-end web development, Java stuff. And then somebody showed me an Android device they'd gotten free at the first Google I/O. And And I was like, oh, this is cool. I have to go to this conference. You know, they're giving away free phones. So I started getting interested in Android, and that was right at the beginning of Android's. It was like a year or two in, which is pretty comparable to what right now is happening with Google Assistant. I spent 10 to 12 years doing mobile development, and that was just like a rocket ship. And my theory at this point is that AI and assistants, this new exciting world of voice programming is the next thing, and where I'm going to dedicate my energy for the next decade. Now, there are users beyond the physically impaired that can also benefit from a voice interaction. Maybe some of you have parents that you help with technology, and it can be a little frustrating to help them. I'm now getting to the age where I'm old enough to be frustrated by technology, almost. So here's a quick video demonstrating another demographic that can benefit from voice computing.
Cuckoo! What is raining today? Water.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it answered.
What?
It said yeah.
You say yeah.
Yeah, it's her.
Oh my God. It's a woman?
Yeah.
I'm glad to meet
What
you.
is this thing?
Hello, Cuckoo.
Hey, you're okay.
That's something from the
Google.
alphabets.
You have to say hey Google or okay.
Hey, Google. Okay, Google.
What's the
There you go.
weather?
Yeah.
What's the weather? Ask.
What the weather? You want to know what is the weather?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
In Flagler Beach tomorrow, there will be showers with a high of 65 and a low of 56.
Wait, this is a mystery.
Watch it there.
I'm scared. I'm scared. It's a mystery. Oh my gosh. No.
Ask Google to play an Italian song.
Cuckoo. Hi, Cuckoo.
You have to say hey or okay.
Hey, okay.
Google.
Tomorrow in London, it'll be sunny with a high of 41 and a low of 30.
London from over there.
It's the temperature in London.
Mom, I asked her to play your favorite song.
Play your favorite song.
Cuckoo. Cuckoo.
Yeah, you're cuckoo, all right.
Cuckoo. Play a song for me. Piemontesina bella.
You have to say.
Addio dei giorni passati. Addio.
So, okay, you don't have to tap it first, but to wake it up, you have to either say, hey, Google, or okay.
Hey, Google. Okay, Google.
Play an Italian song.
And then
Play an
it'll
Italian song.
so it has to light up after you say that, otherwise it didn't hear you correctly.
Yes.
You know, è un salame perché mia capisci cosa dice. I got it.
You're stupid, because I can understand everything I'm saying to you.
Hello, Cuckoo.
Hey or okay?
Okay,
Google.
do it.
Okay. So she did have some struggles with the voice interactions, but you can imagine that eventually she's going to figure that out, and it's going to improve her life and help her. And you can only imagine trying to describe to her how to use a smartphone in an app, something like, I don't know how many people here use Slack. Here's an example. Sometimes people can leave emojis on messages, and on a mobile phone, if you want to know who left the emoji on a message in a big group chat, you long press on the emoji, which is not very intuitive. There are a lot of things like that on small screens where you have to kind of guess what the developer is thinking. The cool inversion in voice programming is that we can ask in hundreds of different ways for a single outcome. If you want to go on a run, that's an example we'll see later, you can ask in hundreds of different ways to go on that run. They all filter to the same intent, same application, same end result. So it's really the computer that has to do the heavy lifting instead of the user. Okay, so, boy, this is crazy. That is weird. Okay. It's like Halloween all over again. So the Google Assistant is available on 1 billion devices. We've covered 30 languages in 80 countries. I think most of you are familiar with. How many people think they have access to the Google Assistant? Okay. Those of you not raised, no, pretty much everybody raise their hands. If you have an iPhone, if you have an Android, you have Google Assistant, or you have it available to you. I briefly touched on this earlier. If you're any of these things in the left column, you can develop content for the Google Assistant. Okay? We haven't talked about the interactive canvas yet. I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. Really exciting. So let's talk about how, if you're a content creator, you can get content into the Google Assistant ecosystem. Here's an example. Let's say that you run a s'mores company. Your company is called S'mores, and you have a website already, which is terrific, but you want to get on a product like the Google Nest Hub, shown on the right. Here we can see a tutorial, a recipe, a how-to guide experience that's driven by, we'll get to this in a second, metadata that's on the website. You can also set up news so that a user can ask for top stories from S'mores. You can set up recipes, show me recipes from S'mores, and if S'mores has a podcast, you can just say, play your favorite podcast. For those of you who have a Google Home speaker at home and you like to listen to podcasts, this is a new feature recently where you can just request it to play your favorite podcast, and we'll start playing it for you. This is how you get a podcast onto the Assistant. How-to guides and FAQs are other valuable ways to get content into the Assistant. Here's an example of a how-to guide, how to make your own do-it-yourself s'mores bar. This is the web experience, and over here, the Google Assistant screen experience. Jeez. I mentioned earlier that content creators who are not developers can be part of this ecosystem. It's as easy as updating a spreadsheet. There are spreadsheet templates. You just enter data, configure the spreadsheet, and it's available on the Google Assistant. FAQs can be driven by metadata on your website, which we can see here, just basic JavaScript. Okay, so let's say you're an Android developer and you're interested in being part of the Google Assistant ecosystem. And why would you even want that? Well, there are a couple good reasons. First off, it's very difficult to get your users to engage with your app. It's a very crowded marketplace. Now it costs over $4 to get an average install of your app. And 77% of users will quit using your app within 3 days of installing it. And why might they do that? Because they have hundreds of apps, this sea of icons. They can't even if they have your app on their phone, they can't find it anymore. They forget about it. They don't, they go to look for it once, can't find it, and they never come back. So how do we get them back? One way is to make them part of this system where people can just talk to any device and get useful content from your app. So here's using app actions, you can connect with more than 1 billion Android phones, take advantage of Google's natural language systems, and allow your users to fast forward into your app. Not necessarily just launching it, but go all the way in 4 or 5 intents deep. So in this example here, the user is asking where their s'mores order is, and they're getting information that might have taken 10, 12 clicks if they were using their phone in a traditional way. So here's an example of placing an order in S'mores, what it looks like on a mobile device. You have to select your cracker, you have to choose your marshmallow, you have to pick the chocolate. There are all these screens, indicate a toast level, tell the app how many you want, review the order's complete. Took 8 clicks to get there. How does it look with voice and direct intent to fulfillment? You invoke it with voice, order 1 milk chocolate, well done from S'mores. Confirm your order, you're done. So you can see the advantage there over, complementing app development. Here's another example. Start My Run in Nike Run Club launches the Nike Run Club app and immediately launches into the intent for starting a run. Is there a race today? I saw all kinds of runners. Yeah, some kind of marathon or something. Okay, so maybe some people are using this today. There are lots of intents already set up for you. Here's some examples: track exercise, check order, find restaurant. Multiple apps can be driven by these different intents. Oops. And I talked earlier about how there can be hundreds of ways to invoke a specific intent. Here's an example. Oh, you guys can't see that. That's a shame. Here. It's very cool. I don't even understand half the things on here. But all of them, if I'm an Android developer, I can write an app and Google will figure out how to route the user experience to the appropriate place. Were you guys able to see that in the back? Kind of, you get the idea. It was like 25 different languages saying the same thing. Okay. What else can we say about Android app actions? Yeah, the same idea. You talk to your phone and you get launched into the middle of a app experience. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about speech. This is a little, there's an example in a second that's going to be Halloween themed, and it's basically Halloween, so we'll give it a shot. SSML, for those of you who haven't done any voice programming yet, by the way, there's a whole world of conversation design. So if you're a web developer and you're familiar with, you're not supposed to put yellow text on a white background because that's not accessible, and you need the font large enough for people to read. There are all kinds of rules around developing for the web. Similar for Android. There's also unintuitively, or now as it's becoming more in vogue, it's becoming more intuitive. There are a series of rules for developing conversational interactions between users and systems. So there's this whole field with an unfortunate acronym of voice design that people are using to make good interactions so that the goo-goo lady can figure out what's going on without too much mental taxation. So SSML is how you traditionally basically make like robot talk. If you don't want to record the voice and you want the Google Assistant to say something, you use SSML, the speech synthesis markup language. One of the cool things, let's see if we can get this. So you can overlap sounds with this parallel media tag.
Come in.
It's like being a Hollywood
Welcome to the terrifying
director.
world of the imagination.
And this is what that code looks like. So you can see there's time markers and sound levels and access to the sounds. Now let's say you don't have sounds, you don't have a recording studio. Well, Google to the rescue. And by the way, this will work whether you're programming for Alexa, Bixby, anything. This is an open source sound library that's really terrific. So definitely use this resource. I guess a little difficult to see, but just reading a couple of these things: alarm clock, assorted computer sounds, beep short, bugle tune, digital watch alarm long. So that's an excellent resource for sounds. Okay, I'm not really an expert in smart home and the assistant, but I'm going to touch on this a little bit. How many people have some kind of smart home device at home? That includes me. I have 50 of them probably at this point. And you can control this hardware with just your voice. And one of the neat things about tying everything into the Google ecosystem is context. So if you tell your if I talk to my clicker and I say, make it warmer by a couple degrees, Google already knows through the Nest that the house is maybe 67 degrees and it's going to increase the temperature to 69 degrees. If I then say, you know what, it's too hot, make it cooler, Google remembers what we were talking about and will modify the temperature appropriately. So here are some of the voice actions you can say. You can do things with lights. You can do things with temperature. There's a new technology feature with smart homes and the Google Assistant. It used to be that whenever you talk to your speaker, for example, the instruction went all the way to the cloud and then had to come back. And now things are faster because they're happening locally through Bluetooth. These are some different devices that you can control: locks, boilers, air fresheners. Who knew? Anybody here have a smart air freshener in their house? I have yet to see one, but they exist. Security systems, the garage. Does anybody have a smart garage? I have this. It's actually pretty cool. The Chamberlain device, and then you can have Amazon come put your packages in your device. Not that we're here promoting Amazon, but kind of neat. Yeah. Oh yeah. Your vacuum cleaners now you can control. Yeah, that's awesome. And then there's smart washing machine, dryer. It will tell you when stuff is ready. Okay, so how does this work? Let's say you want to write your own action. You're a software developer. Let's walk through that. So the user obviously provides input, gives some kind of voice command. That goes over to the Google Assistant, which turns into an HTTP request, which many of you would be familiar with. Goes to the action, which is what you code. We're going to look at that in a second. The action returns an HTTP response, and then the assistant sends a fulfillment response, which would be some kind of voice response or an action, changing the temperature, something like that. So let's look at an example here. This is kind of the classic Google Assistant example. It's an app that helps you find recipes when you want to cook at home. So the user says, "Hey Google, talk to personal chef." In the Google Assistant, all this technology magic that you don't really need to understand happens, and it pulls out the important information. In this case, the important information is, hey, this user would like to use the personal chef action. So we drop into text-to-speech, and what are you in the mood for? And then as a user, I say, well, it's kind of cold outside, so I'd like something warm, maybe some hot soup would be nice. That goes over into the cloud, gets parsed, and gets returned back with follow-up information, or requests for follow-up information. What kind of protein would you like? Now, one of the amazing things, how many people have done regular expressions? Now, how many people feel confident doing regular expressions? I have to go to one of 3 regular expression websites every single time I have to write a regular expression. One of the best things about Dialogflow and creating Google Assistant actions is that Dialogflow takes some of that difficulty away from you. It extracts the complexity. So in this instance, let's say you're trying to design a software program to figure out what temperature the user wants their recipe to be. You have recipes that are categorized by different attributes, and one of them is temperature. Well, I see 3 temperatures in this example. I see cold, warm, and hot. So how would you know that hot is the one that's the attribute for the food? Well, there's a proximity relationship here that's a bit of luck, but Google takes care of this for you automatically, and it does it through Dialogflow. And I think we have an example. Yeah, I probably won't, we're getting a little tight on time, so I probably won't play this whole thing, but, oops. I will just point out, for those of you who haven't, well, you can't see it anyways, what it shows is a video of training the system. So by using machine learning, you can just type in a couple of examples, and then you highlight entities that you want Dialogflow to extract, such as temperature, color, other attributes, and Dialogflow figures that out for you. Okay, moving on. So I've talked about how there's a lot of growth in voice interactions. This is an example of that. This is shown pretty well. So you can see the growth of cable TV here, kind of slow, not huge adoption. And then we have things like cell phones, internet, social media. As time has gone on, these things have started accelerating and hitting higher market penetration faster and faster. And if we add in, on my computer, you can see all the previous ones in gray, but you can see smart speakers are similarly growing at a very fast pace. Smart display adoption is interesting. How many people have a smart display at their house of any brand? Awesome, cool. So these are, this chart is people who own smart displays who also have smart speakers. And you can see the rapid growth. There are small numbers overall, like it still has not hit 15% penetration, but the growth in just 1 year from January 2018, the far left bar to the far right bar is insane. So wait for Black Friday. There'll be even more of you will have smart displays.
More DevFest, they give them away like candy.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. So what do people use the assistant for? To just kind of give you some ideas on what you might want to develop in the future. The music and asking questions are probably the top 2 items. There are a lot of other things you can do though. Checking sports scores, controlling your smart house, food delivery, hotel flight research. Sounds a little bit like a nightmare to do through voice, but you can do it. Sending and receiving messages, getting a weather forecast is very common. All right, let's talk about the interactive canvas, which is really cool. If you're a web developer, you're used to writing JavaScript, you can now control pixel by pixel the experience of a user on a smart display. What very common usage for this is gaming, playing back videos, visualizing data, and so a good game to play for those of you who have screens is Are You Feeling Lucky? Another one is Mad Libs. You can say, hey Google, talk to Mad Libs, and you can play Mad Libs on your smart display. The way this works is very similar to the workflow we saw before. The user talks to the device goes over to actions on Google, routes through Dialogflow, and the fulfillment comes back and displays something to the user that is essentially a web app driven by the Interactive Canvas API. Okay, we're wrapping up here. One of the challenges at an event like this is you guys are going to see 10 amazing talks today. And next week, a month from now, next year, I want you to remember something about me as opposed to the 9 other speakers. So here's something silly to kind of wrap up today's talk, something you'll remember about the amazing world of voice programming. And I'm going to frame this as part of a security parable with a quick movie clip that some people might recognize. Some of you younger kids might.
Guido. He's a manager?
That's right.
Yeah, there we go.
Or a pimp.
I've got a trig mid.
Oh, there, yeah, it's there.
Term tomorrow, and I'm being chased by Guido, the killer pimp.
All right, that was kind of quiet. So I have a trig midterm tomorrow, and I'm being chased by Guido, the killer pimp. Did anybody see the most recent Dave Chappelle special on Netflix? There was maybe an unfavorable Ohio reference towards the end about some drug-addled, crazy people coming into his house. And if you can imagine that scenario, maybe that's even better than this one. Let's say you're in a situation where you want the Google Assistant to record what is going on. You can imagine a movie, it's like the Goonies, and the bad guys are around, but you want the authorities to know where you're going. They're laying out their plan. How could you trigger, this is a large enough audience, maybe somebody here will know this. How can you trigger Google to listen to you without giving it away to the assailants. Anybody have any guesses? Obviously, if you say, "Hey Google," that's going to give it away. So there's a concept of false positives with smart speakers. So you guys might have noticed this sometimes, maybe even during my talk today. I've said the hot keyword for the Google Assistant multiple times, and we've heard it on video, so your devices might have woken up and started listening when you didn't intend them to listen to you. If you're ever trapped being chased by Guido the Killer Pimp, or you're in the middle of some Dave Chappelle comedy routine, you can say these magic words: cocaine noodles. And that will also wake up your Google Assistant, because it turns out that these speakers, as smart as they are, they're not as smart as the human ear, right? The human ear can easily detect the difference between "Hey Google" and "cocaine noodles," but a smart speaker can't, and it will be easily triggered by, say, you can try this at home later. So, all right, hopefully you'll remember that a week or so from now. All right, inclusive design tips. We're going to fly through these so we can get some questions going. And I'll just leave this up while we take questions. We got 15 minutes or so, 10, maybe a little less, 4 questions. Yeah?
I've noticed that with a lot of things, you have to ask for another app to do something.
Okay.
Instead of it being intuitive. Now, you can try to go into routines and get around this.
Okay.
But it's a perfect example is you have to ask sleep sounds to play the sound of rain.
Okay.
Because if you ask the assistant to play the sound of rain, it will go fetch something off of YouTube, which is not the same.
Right.
Do you know if there are there any plans to make it a little more of a default, that it would lean towards the other application, or should we just keep using routines to get around it?
Yeah, so I'll repeat the question for the benefit of the camera and everybody else. It was essentially talking about launching into app experiences, controlling what you want to happen with your voice. You have to qualify those queries with the action you want to perform it. The example being, what was the name of the app? Sorry? Sleep Sounds. Hey Google, use sleep sounds to play the sound of rain. Because if you just said play the sound of rain, it might use Google Play Music, it might use YouTube, it might, it would select at random. Is there a better way to do that? Are routines the best way to work around that for now? Yeah, if you have a routine, which a routine could be like, a lot of people maybe have a good night routine. Like, hey Google, put the home to sleep. We'll dim the house, turn on the alarm, maybe play some soothing music, turn the temperature down a little bit. You can set up these series of commands that all drive from one custom command. That's the best way to do it now. Users of the Google Assistant are probably familiar with how the Google Assistant has evolved in just a couple years to now being able to customize things to your own voice. So they can tell, if you say, play my favorite music, and you have a child at home and they say, play my favorite music, the results are different depending on the voice that's used to start the command. I can imagine a future where, because you've asked 10 times before, play rain sounds with sleep sounds, that it will eventually learn to use sleep sounds. Kind of the same way on Android. My personal example is when I go to my gym, almost every time when I flip open the app bar, one of the 4 kind of shortcut icons at the bottom is my gym icon, because every time I'm on that Wi-Fi, I'm always looking for the barcode to scan in, and it's smart enough to figure that out. I feel like eventually the assistant will figure that out. It's a little frustrating for me sometimes. I play music all the time. I have a Google Play Music subscription, and randomly 1 out of 30 times it will play it on YouTube, and then it'll start playing videos, like in the middle.
It just doesn't ask for a default app. What app would you like to use? Would you like to use it all the time?
No, I definitely set a default for Google Music. Like, mine never plays Spotify.
Okay.
Somehow there is a default in there somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, how about Google Apps for your domains? I mean, it still doesn't seem to know when I say, hey, what's on my schedule? Oh, I'm sorry, I don't. We're trying to improve over the past year and a half. I mean, why don't they support that yet? Being able to do calendar on Google Apps for your domain accounts. You follow what I'm saying?
I kind of do, but it does work for me. So I'm not sure if the apps. Yeah, sorry. The question is about asking for your schedule.
Not on a Gmail account.
Okay.
On a specific custom domain.
Okay.
Google Apps for your domain. So basically, it takes Google Apps, mail, calendar, blah blah blah.
Right.
You can throw them on
XYZ.com.
XYZ.com.
Okay.
Right.
Gotcha.
I have a Gmail account.
Yeah.
It's at XYZ.com, and it has calendar, and I have it configured to do everything.
Yeah. Are you a developer? Yeah. So here's an awesome opportunity to delve into the amazing world of voice programming. So the question is about.
The hurdles are a little bigger than that, I
Yeah.
imagine, but I'm just wondering why haven't they done that?
Sure. I actually don't know the answer. Let's follow up afterwards. The question was, when I ask for my calendar schedule, why doesn't it work if I'm using a custom domain and not a generic Gmail calendar affiliated with my account? I don't know the answer. I can try and find out. Are you logged in as that user to the assistant device? That's weird. Okay. Yeah, I haven't heard that one before.
Works with everybody else, but
Yeah.
Gmail doesn't.
Okay. Yeah.
One of my struggles for my active actions was uploading a very large data set of intents into dialogue flow. So I had to use a third-party vendor to get that done. Just wanted to throw that out.
How many intents are you talking about? 1,000?
Thousands.
Okay. All right. So the question was, this is a healthy criticism of dialogue flow. The question, not really a question, an observation was, it's difficult to load a large number of intents into dialogue flow. For people who are used to programming and automating things, dialogue flow can be a little clunky. It's a website that's like point and click, and you type into it. You can do custom fulfillment and write your own code, and you can run that at your house, or you can type it into the browser for the fulfillment side, but setting up the intents can be frustrating. I don't really know how these NDA things work. I do know that that is a often requested feature, and I know there's activity happening in that area, but there's nothing available today that would help you.
My solution was a third-party vendor. It's like datingmining.com.
Okay.
It's $40, and it's just
Does it just do like web scraping kind of thing, like Puppeteer? Yeah, sure. Yeah, there's a better solution coming down the road. So yeah, how are we doing on time? We're supposed to do a 10-minute break. Is that the idea? All right. Maybe one last question, if.
Just an observation.
Yeah.
The most important command is send feedback.
Okay. Yeah. So most important command, send feedback. And for that matter, I'm Mark. I'm from Denver, Colorado. Come give me feedback on my talk today. Thank you very much, everybody.